Hello, everyone. It feels like such a long time. I hope everyone has been doing well. I hope you had an incredible weekend. We have another special guest, and I'm waiting for her to request. Yeah, today's going to be a good one. Well, they're always good ones, but I am super excited for today because I feel like this is an important conversation to have. And so that's why I'm so excited to introduce you guys to our next guest. Dr. Mariel, if you are here, please drop me that request so that we can begin with our live. Once again, thank you for joining us, guys. Dr. Mariel is a psychologist, so if you have any mental health questions that you want to ask, please start sending them through now, and we'll try to get to them as soon as possible. Okay, Dr. Mariel, I cannot find you. Please send in your request. We're so excited and waiting to chat to you. I know people sent in a lot of questions earlier on as well. So, we're waiting for Dr. Mariel. Looking. How was your guys' weekend? I know I had such a good one. I rested for most part of it, which is such an important thing to remember, you guys, to actually rest as much as we can, because we feel so pressured to be busy because every other person is busy. You don't have to be. So rest when you can. There she is. Found. You guys don't even understand. Crossing fingers and hoping for great connection. Hello!
Hey.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you.
The colors are amazing.
Thank you so much. I just
Beautiful
wanted to wear happy colors today. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you. You're
Yes,
beautiful
thank you
too. Gorgeous skin, gorgeous hair. I mean,
coming from you. Thank you.
You're welcome. To everyone who just tuned in, this is Dr. Mariel. She is an incredible psychologist. I was just reading through your bio, trying to put it all in my head, and I was like, she has accomplished so much. I'm probably going to have to read it out for people to know exactly who she is. She is an Afro-Dominican psychologist. She provides therapy and teaches courses at the Columbia University Medical Center. In areas of culturally responsive delivery of mental health care. Her clinical work focuses on inner child wounds, intergenerational trauma. She believes in the liberation of our minds, of oppressive systems as necessary factors in our overall wellness. And you can find her on Instagram at Dr. Help me pronounce your surname. It's Buquè. Wow, that sounds so fancy. Mariel Buquè. It will be attached in here as well. That's where you guys can find her. Dr. Mariel, today is it's a very important topic that we're speaking about, and I'm so glad that you could join us because mental health. It's a very important topic to have, especially during this time. Usually people think you have to feel sick in order to start seeking help, but I usually feel like it's something that we should be practicing generally to speak about our mental health. And I know that during this time of COVID-19, people have more things to worry about than just the physical sickness. People have been in their heads a lot. They've been in isolation. How is the loneliness impacting mental health during this time?
I mean, I think it really is exacerbating, people's stress response, right? Like it's making it so that people are experiencing something that we weren't conditioned to experience as humans. We are not conditioned to be alone, right? Like the human experience is one that is collective, right? We are people in relation. And so what's happening is that, you know, people are contending with something that doesn't really fit within their genuine humanness. And so they're being thrown off, and, you know, it's presenting itself as not only physical symptoms, but also mental health related symptoms, and actually the combination of the two that can also, you know, be at the intersection of mental health. Sometimes we present with physical symptoms that really have to do with a stress response. So what we're seeing is that people are generally not doing too well, and for the people that were already pre-pandemic not doing so well in terms of their mental health, they're reaching a different level of mental unwellness. And so we have to take really good care of each other during this time.
I absolutely agree. Even for me, I consider myself as an introvert, so I don't mind. I never mind, you know, being alone and having my space. But I did notice that after a while, I started, you know, kind of missing people and missing being outside. And so if it does that for someone like me, who's actually comfortable in being her own space, it just made me imagine, you know, how many more people who had already been suffering, you know, with mental health. You know, how they're handling it. So it's absolutely true. So which goes to, you know, my next question. What other ways do you think people can go out for help maybe during this time? Or is there anything happening online that could actually make people, you know, feel better about themselves during this time?
Yeah, you know, because these are tricky times, right? To be able to be, you know, in social connection, what is happening is that a lot of the resources that typically would be out in the public are being brought into the online space. And, you know, I'm really grateful that we exist in a world where we have more of a facility to actually have, you know, technology at our disposal. That's not to say that that's the entire world. We understand that, you know, economic privilege definitely factors into that, right? However, you know, for those of us that do have it and have at our disposal the capacity to connect with others through a medium like social media, Instagram, or through our phones, this is an opportunity to start that social engagement. So it can be from a professional place, or it can actually be, you know, just from forming a connection with people that, you know, can love and support you in the ways that you need, and that you may be able to offer a reciprocation of that love and support as well, right? Right now, in terms of resources, there's so many of us therapists that are offering not only the actual therapy online, but there are very many of us that are, for the people that aren't able to afford the fee, because we know therapy can be really expensive and it makes it inaccessible for many people. We're offering some services free to the public. So if people are able to look those up, then they'll be able to have at least a couple of sessions to hold them over, you know, to be able to feel a little bit better and surface from that overwhelming stress while we get through this pandemic. And also IG, right? Many of us, myself included, put out a ton of resources on a daily basis to keep people engaged in the process of self-care, wellness, and also some of the things that people are going to need during this time to actually navigate other mental health concerns and other mental health related issues, like having interpersonal difficulties with others. That's a very big thing. If you're confined in a home, you know, with parents or siblings with whom you have conflict, how do you navigate that so that you can stay well? And so we're here to help in that regard. So, you know, there's resources out there. We're here for all of you. So
thank you. And on that tip as well, we will be putting on information about the resources that she spoke about. We will be putting them on our stories. So if you guys want to go and see what's happening there, please visit those links. They will help you a lot. Dr. Mariel, you mentioned family and living in conflict. And it just reminded me how of sometimes family doesn't understand, you know, our mental wellness, and they don't understand mental health as much. I'm probably one of those people who grew up as well not really having a vast understanding of, you know, mental health, because it's not something we speak about, because it's something that's still very foreign in so many families, especially I will say in African families. I don't know about other people. It's not something that we believe in. You know, mental health is not a thing. It was never a thing for our parents. They were never able to go to, you know, psychologists and to speak about how they feel. And so because of that, it's just become something that's so foreign to us. You know, how do people deal with that? How do we, you know, as the new generation, start, you know, seeing the psychologists speaking about our mental health and speaking to our parents about it and making them understand that this is actually, you know, there's an illness, there's a seriousness to it. I'm not exaggerating. This is how I feel. How do we make our parents, you know, see that, or people around us see it?
Yeah, and Zosie, I share that with you. You know, like I myself, you know, share that background of never really coming in contact with mental health until my adult years. And so by that time, you know, I kind of had to figure it out on my own, like, oh, mental health therapy is a thing, you know, it's available to me. I can actually, like, you know, speak to a neutral party that, you know, is judgment free as best as they can be, you know, to help me sort out some of the things in my life. However, there is so much stigma that we still have around mental health, and it is incredibly prominent in communities of color. I mean, we have like another layer of it, right? So it makes it really hard to present the idea of therapy to an individual and for them to buy into it. And then when they actually do buy into it, for them to actually kind of like come out, if you may, to their families and say, hey, this is something that I'm trying, and for their families to welcome that as a part of their healing journey. Very often in communities of color, definitely, you know, within my families and my community, the Afro community, the Dominican community, so, you know, as they coincide in my identities, they usually like for you to keep things in the family, right?
Yeah.
So keeping things in the family is our norm. We do not talk about problems outside of the family.
Nope. You don't tell strangers our problems.
That's right, right? It's so shunned upon, and it's like, you know, it makes it so that you then believe that going out and seeking care, where you actually have to talk about family dynamics or anything that may have happened to you, feels like an added hurdle and a burden, and something that can actually tear a family apart. So you basically, you have so many things that you have to overcome in order to actually engage in therapy. And so for anybody out there that has decided to overcome that hurdle, I really commend you, because I think that, you know, it's much harder than people might imagine. And it is something that really requires a full familial support. We all need to be there for each other. So family needs to be in the loop, you know, about these things. I take it that one way that I found it to be really helpful for people to break the news to parents that are of a different era and don't really have that buy-in to therapy yet is for people to actually talk about intergenerational trauma, and also talk about the ways in which they've seen that presented in their families. Like, you know, Mom, I've seen that you've been suffering for so long and really didn't have an outlet, like, you know, people to talk to about this. And that suffering actually led to me having the experience of, you know, feeling like I couldn't help you. I felt so helpless, right? In comes like how the generations interchange this dynamic of pain, and really speaking to the heart of the individual and the ways in which their pain is something that really matter to you, I think really brings down the guard and the stigma, and allows a person to listen to the reasons why therapy may be a good idea. So I think that that's one way, you know, I think that people have different ways that they can talk to their own people based on how they feel like they may hear them out. But I found that that's one way that tends to work out fairly well for most of us.
I'm hoping that there's someone who listens and actually, you know, takes this and it helps them, because I do know, even personally, of a couple of people who haven't been able to, just because of those stigmas that we put towards mental health. But I also do know that there's also some families who are willing to listen and are willing to help, but sometimes you find that they don't have the financial means for it. I know that you mentioned it before, how expensive it can be. How does someone who can't afford, you know, that type of help, how would you advise them to go about? Because I know a lot of people. I was actually on Twitter the other day, and someone was asking me if do I know of any free help that they can get. Apparently this person was grieving and they were looking for someone who deals with grief, you know, and do I know anyone? And it really hit me that people are looking for help. People do want to be helped, but they can't afford to. Is there a way that someone who doesn't have that kind of money can be helped as well?
Absolutely. There are so many ways. It's just that I think that the general public, and they have not been informed, and that's on us, the mental health world. We haven't informed the general public enough about what is out there that actually is free or low cost. So some places that are available, basically, at least within the United States, let's say throughout the United States, are hospitals. Hospitals have clinics that I work at a hospital. I work in a clinic where the population that we serve are individuals who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford mental health care. And so there are places within hospitals, designated clinics that have at people's disposal the services that are either at no cost, low fee, have specific programs in place that actually help the person pay for the services, or they may take subsidized services from the government to pay for the services themselves.
Okay.
And so there are that. And then there's also some nonprofit mental health centers. We're very lucky in New York to have an abundance of those. I mean, it is a very large city with a lot of resources. And so I know that that's not the case everywhere. However, you know, mental health centers that are usually nonprofit also have these services available at no fee, low cost, or with some sort of scholarship or grant available to the public.
Okay, that's good. I'm so happy to hear that, because it would be nice to actually direct, you know, people to these places so that they can get the help that they need. I also know that, you know, stress is a very, very big part of mental health. And people have been going through so much stress right now. And most of that stress is coming from the uncertainties of their jobs. You know, people aren't able to keep their jobs because of what's happening at the moment. Companies are retrenching. You know, it's just really a horrible time. How do you think people can deal, you know, with those stresses at the moment?
Yeah, I think, you know, there's so much happening in the job stress world, if you may, that requires our attention. I mean, there's the people that are the essential workers, right? Like they are experiencing a specific stress of being in the front lines daily, on a daily basis, risking their lives and their well-being in order to serve the general public, right? And so that's an added stress that they're assuming themselves. There are the people that are...
Dr. Mariel, I've lost you a little. I think there's a little disconnect there with your Wi-Fi. Okay, she's coming back on. I think we're going to chat a little and then we're going to jump into your questions. So if you guys have any mental health questions, please. Hi! I'm so happy to see your face again.
Me too. That's so funny. I was literally about to say, you know, people are working from home and they have like stress around technology, and then technology kicked in.
And then like, it kicked in.
That's so funny. It was just like such like
Yeah.
good timing for technology to, you know,
It is.
come
So
into
let me
conversation.
let me catch people up a little. So before we had this problem with the Wi-Fi and connection, I asked Dr. Mariel, because a lot of people have been undergoing a lot of stress and anxiety due to the fact that people are losing their jobs. People have to constantly be working on the internet. And I was asking her how, you know, people can deal you know, with the stresses and anxieties that they're going through due to being scared of losing their jobs, or people who have lost their jobs already.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's something that can be really hard to contend with, because when people are losing their jobs, they're also losing their capacity to sustain themselves, you know, during a pandemic, right? Like if you are going to need to go out and stockpile on supplies and don't have the actual means to do that, you know, what are you going to do, right? Like, you know, how are you going to cope with something that's very real and that doesn't have an immediate fix? Like there isn't even the opportunity to go out and seek out another job, because right now, you know, everything's on lockdown. So, you know, from the mental health perspective, because there are other ways in which people can cope from more logistical perspectives financially, but from the mental health perspective, I think it's important for people to understand that self-talk is a really valuable piece of what we do in mental health, being able to talk to oneself and tell oneself that this is not going to last forever, right? I think that when people get hit so hard during a pandemic, losing their job, or having to be an essential worker, or having to have an enormous amount of stress in the home, having children around that they have to take care of, and like, you know, also like having to do a full, you know, work day on top of that, then it can be really intense for people to feel like they have to contend with all of this, and they don't actually have a finite date, a date in sight for someone to say, hey, look, May 15th, this is all going to be over, right? Everything's going to go back to normal and you're going to be good to go. You're going to have your job back. For many of us, that isn't a possibility, probably for all of us, because we really don't know when this is going to be over. So it's important for people to do the things that are going to be the essential pillars of maintaining emotional wellness. Some of the things that we like to highlight are some of the basic needs that we need as people. Sleep hygiene is incredibly important, making sure that you're getting adequate sleep, trying your best to get adequate nutrition. That's incredibly important. Doing things to stay active in the home. You know, I do just a little bit of yoga here and there in my house, in random places in my home, right? Just to stay active and to invite the breath into my lungs, because oftentimes when we're in a state of panic and in a state of stress, what we lose first is our capacity to engage in healthy breathing and breathe air in to flow oxygen through our minds, our brains, and our bodies. And also, you know, connect with people, right? I mean, I think there is so much value in social support when a person feels like they don't have any recourses. There are people out there that are very willing to help. There have been several friends that have communicated to me and other friends that they, you know, have lost their jobs or are in need, and people pull together. People might be there to support you. So, you know, seek out social support, either from an emotional perspective or even from a financial perspective, and see if people might have something disposable, you know, some sort of income disposable to share with you during this time.
Yeah, I think that the biggest takeaway from there is just human connection, just being there for people. I've been saying this almost every day, that, you know, now is that time to actually be more together, to show more kindness, and for people to be selfless. And I absolutely share your sentiments. Speaking of, you know, jobs and anxieties, we do know that people of your job as well, you know, psychologists, therapists, they're not immune to what's happening at the moment. How are you handling things?
Oh, that's so sweet of you to ask, Tunzi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, a lot of us are pulling together to do like collective wellness, Zooms or FaceTimes and things like that. It's really important for us to validate each other as humans, right? And so that's something that's been happening in some of the check-ins that I've been a part of. And I think that it's incredibly validating to experience that, because I am feeling the exhaustion, the lack of energy during my day sometimes, when I'm like, wow, this isn't my typical time to be exhausted throughout my day. Like, I feel like I'm back at being 3 years old and I need naps now, like all of a sudden, you know? And a part of that is the mental exhaustion of not only being a part of this pandemic crisis, but also being kind of like at the hub of the emotional crisis that we're experiencing as a result. And so it's important for us to bear in mind that, you know, we have to take care of ourselves for any of the fellow therapists that are out there, because we have a population of people to take care of. So it has to start here in order for it to actually, you know, be put out there into the world.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you're doing okay, because we need you. People, you know, need you, but mostly you need yourselves as well, most importantly. Okay, so I'm going to be taking a few questions from people who have been watching, because I know they have so many questions for you before we leave. I know I had some coming through as well, because we asked them yesterday. And someone asked, how do you improve yourself mentally as a person?
Goodness.
Oh my goodness, what is happening?
I don't know.
Oh, I can still hear you though.
Okay, yeah, I'll keep talking. So
I just can't see you.
How do you prepare yourself mentally as a person? So it's really important for us to be able to engage in a lot of self-care. I'm such a big proponent of self-care. I can't even begin to tell you how much self-care I tend to do throughout the day. I literally wake up to self-care. I go to sleep to it. I think it's really important for people to do anything that they can to engage in, you know, the practice of wellness throughout the day.
Dr. Mariel, sorry to cut you a little. I can hear you, but I can't see you. And so I think we're going to have to hop on and off again. So if you can maybe try, I'm going to have you go off and then I'm going to try bring you back again. If not, then I'll probably have to. I'm going to stay on and Okay. Hi.
Hello. You know, they say third time's the charm.
And this is what I just said. I just said third time's the charm. But what we'll do, Dr. Mariel, is we won't keep you now for that long. Actually, I think I'm just going to, So I just want to thank you for, you know, joining us today. I brought you back on just to say thank you. I didn't want to say goodbye without seeing your face. Thank you for taking time to come speak to the people. But what we will do though is we will send in those questions that they were going to ask, and we'll try to get them answered by having another live or Zoom, or we could just like answer their questions through stories. We will figure out a way to make sure that they get those answers and that they get the help that they need, because I feel like this is such an important you know, conversation, and people did send in questions. So thank you so much for joining us and for your time and for your wisdom. We will be sending you those questions and hopefully engage with the fans again.
Wonderful. It's been lovely chatting it up with you and with everyone. Thank you so much for opening up this conversation, Zozie. It's really
Thank you so much, Dr. Mariel. I will continue to stalk you and look at those self-care posts that she put out every time. So if you guys can also follow her as well, we will put on her IG account as well in our stories. Thank you so much, Dr. Mariel. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Unfortunately, it was just one of those days where the internet just wasn't cooperating. But because I said I felt like this is such an important conversation to have, especially during this time. You know, people are going through a lot, not just physically, but mentally as well, because of all the isolation and all the loneliness that we're going through, which is just a reminder again that you guys are not alone. We're here, you know, there's friends, there's family. Continue connecting with us through hashtag Universe United. Hopefully we can help, you know, your mental health journey as well by listening to your stories and sharing each other's stories and entertaining each other and just being an ear to listen to each other. We will be putting the resources as well on our stories. So if you guys want to visit those websites where you can get the help or the NGOs that she mentioned, we will leave them there on the slides for you. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe and stay healthy. Love you guys.